Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a weekly podcast where we figure out what we think about stuff, have a bit of therapy. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Majic.
And this week we're going to have a chat about professionalism. And as always, that's the nature of professionalism, the challenges to professionalism. What made you start thinking of this? What's on your mind?
Well, I was talking to some people this week about their staff handbook. That was one reason I thought about it.
Staff handbook. What is a staff handbook?
Yeah, that kind of like, hey, welcome to the company. Here's some stuff you need to read, and how much of what was in it it's generally expected of a adult professional going to work, and how much of it is a bit like, whoa, why do you need to tell me this? And also in the I was just chatting to somebody this week about how hard it was for her mother to find staff for her cafe, and having been to the cafe and seen how hard the mother works, I don't know. So there's a few things that I think are like how much professionalism comes from within us, how much of it is pride in your work, how much is it following the rules, blah blah. I don't know. So I think there's a few things to think about. That's what I was thinking.
My dad always said professionalism is doing things even when you don't feel like doing them. So this is how I've always looked at it. But I think my emotional reactions are the biggest challenge to my professionalism usually. So let's let the title music play and then get into it, shall we? How's it going, Ivanka Majic in Croatia? Feeling nice and warm?
Very warm, very sweaty. I've been running around all morning since I woke up at 5:30, got up.
How long ago was that?
It is now midday, I think. So some time ago.
So 7 hours?
7 hours. I've been up. I've walked Nick and I put some bread in, walked the dogs, but for a limited amount of time because we had to get back to get the bread out. And then when we got back, I made coffee, and then I also started lunch because I knew that everything was going to be chaotic. So I put lunch on the stove, and then the child woke up and my mother woke up. So luckily I'd made enough pancakes yesterday that all I need to do is warm up the pancakes today. So I did that, kept half the pancakes wrapped up for a swimming lesson, which was a bit later, packed the bag for swimming. Then Nick and our daughter are off on a boat trip with some friends, so I had to think about what they were going to need for that. Then I got in the car, I was about to get in the car, and then I had to water the garden. Don't forget
water the garden for 45 minutes.
Water the garden. I just did the vulnerable plants, I have to say. Okay. I left the ones that should know better or should be able to survive. Then just as we were about to leave, there was Mummy, I need to go to the toilet. So then we had to go back in the house, and then we had to go in the car, and then we had to park the car. Then I have to say, we have found her really cool swimming lessons. Right. But in the sea, in the nearest town, and it's called Zvrk, which is a great name. Zvrk, that's spinning top in Croatian. Okay. And often you say to a child, "Oh, sit down, you're like a zvrk." Anyway, so it's quite a good name. But the teacher is really good, and she said of my daughter today, she said she's very calm and pedantic. So she doesn't frantically swim. Lots of little children kind of go right. But she's quite a calm swimmer. She's calm in the water. She loves it. But she's also, if she gets instructions, she really tries to follow them. And, it's quite cool watching this little 6-year-old dive in and out of things. And they made her swim quite a distance. Right. So I was feeling tired just from watching her, just having to swim. And it was very hot, so I had to stand on the beach and be supportive mum. And then we've been going with a friend.
Relaxing.
And he was like,
anyone relaxed yet?
And then he was like, this friend because he found it for his kids, so we went along, but his kid's a bit smaller, but he promised his child a reward to go on a pedalo. And I was like, yeah, we can, but we can only do the pedalo for 15 minutes. And therefore, and so we got to pedalo. He did the pedalo. Somebody blocked my car in, so I had to get the car out. And then I got the car in, and then we got home. And then there was all this frantic running around with Nick going, "What about the sun cream? What about this? What about that?" And then, I've just sat down. So, hello.
Hi. We watched a bit of Olympic swimming yesterday. It's they're like fish, aren't they? They're like bloody fish. There was how was my week? It's been 2 weeks, hasn't it?
2 weeks, yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say anything that's not about work, but I've followed this course, this Pat Flynn start your website thing, online business, blah blah blah. I thought I'm gonna funnel what I'm doing on squares.tv through his guide, so that to try and focus on what he reckons is the most important thing first, rather than just getting bogged down in the weeds all the time. And that actually went really well, but it was a really hard week. But it does mean that now squares.tv is up and ready to start looking at. Even though the first video isn't done yet, but that's sort of less important than getting the about page was sort of something he sort of said to focus on, and then a getting started thing and the sign ups and the analytics and all those kinds of things. But yeah, so I've got Squares TV going. I'm working on the edit for that, but that's been quite tough because when we recorded it, my computer was too hot and all my videos messed up and framey, so I can hardly use any of that, so I'm sort of having to bandage it together with new footage and trying to figure out the format and make graphics for it and sound, what's the music going to be and all this stuff, and that's been taking a bit too long. I'm working on my app a lot. I've sort of been making good progress on that, but I just feel like I'm working very, very, very hard, but I've not done anything that actually touches anything that can actually affect any numbers for again a while, and I'm starting to but meanwhile I also learnt of the existence of virtual assistants a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, is this going to help me out? Is this the way forward? And my experience so far, 1 week in, even 3 days in, was the trouble is if someone's going to save you time, they have to sort of spend about as much time as you would have spent, and then sort of if you're only paying for 10 hours a month, you're only going to save 10 hours a month, which isn't very much time. So it's the value you get from it is going to be proportional to very much directly related to how much money you spend, and if you don't spend much, then you're not going to get very much at all. And that's been a bit, because I thought I'll give her this huge list of potential influencers to just figure out who they are and what to talk about, but then that just ends up taking half my budget for the month already, and it's okay, no, this can't be time consuming things. It needs to be scraps and little things that it's such a small thing. So I'm a bit it hasn't solved all my problems. I was hoping it would get me past the sort of emotional block and help me start committing to talking to people, but then I guess I've been doing that a bit more anyway. But anyway, that's where I am, just trying to talk to more people, trying to figure out how to get my stuff out there, and also trying to finish a new version of the app, which is always a bit dangerous and risky.
I'm totally in the opposite mode.
Really?
I'm in family life mode, which, as you have gathered, it's quite hectic but very different. I've given myself permission as well not to do anything on my book for a little while I think about the feedback and work out what it meant. I had a good chat with somebody who has written more than one book, and she said, it's quite normal, you get feedback and you're like, wow, yes. What the fuck am I supposed to do about all that then? And then and she said actually that time away from it is good time. So because I said, I was going to give myself 2 weeks. She's like, don't rush it, because you want it to be good. Which is true. It's not
your background thinking do its processing, and then when you come back to it, it'll be okay, right.
So now I've given myself permission to do that properly without feeling guilty. Because there's one thing to give yourself permission with guilt, and then there's another thing to go, no, you're allowed to go off and just sit and watch your child do a swimming lesson and not worry about what you could be doing with that time. I've actually had a good week and slept a lot. So I think I had a delayed end of work thing.
Winds down.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's where we are, listener. That's us. Let's do a clip. Professionalism. Why bother being professional?
Why bother?
If you're just white and a man, you can get away with not being professional.
I think that's a good point, and one that we should and could discuss. Some people get away with being less professional than others. Some people can't make even the basic professional slip-ups. I've been reading that book. I hadn't even thought of this until now as we started talking. You started on the male white privilege.
Sorry,
I've been reading that Invisible Women book by Caroline, I can't remember her surname. The woman who, you know what I'm talking about, Invisible Women book, and talking about the fact that the whole of the work setup, which I hadn't realised till I read it through her, I'm looking at the world through her, and then you're like, well, the assumption is that if there are children, there's a wife at home looking after the children, so the man can just stay and do drinks late at work or whatever, So one of the examples she gives, that even the tax system is biased, because you can claim a taxi as a work expense if you went to work drinks, but you can't claim for a babysitter.
Right.
But both of those are the expense of doing work drinks after hours. So it's those kind of, I really had not thought about it in those terms, but once it's been written down, you're like, yep,
yeah,
I see. So that was quite, what is it professional to even ask for the fees for your babysitting to be covered when, if you should pretend you haven't got children or pretend you're not responsible. Yeah, you're supposed to
feel guilty about having children, and I need to get home at 5:30. Like I need to get home at the contracted time. But I just want to interject and say, like, the Olympics is pretty gendered, isn't it? Like the women, the gymnastics is like the women have to do all these dances and stuff, and the men just get to do the tumbles, and the women have to do like a flipping stupid body. It's like, what is this? I spoke to Sharon. I said, well, what would be better if the women didn't have to do it, or the men did have to do it? And we're like, the men should have to do it too. The men should have to do the little dances as well.
I think it would be more entertaining, wouldn't it? I mean, have you seen that the German team? This is quite controversial, the Olympics this year. This year, in a couple of ways. The shorts thing, and also the German gymnast women coming in unitards, so they're covered from ankle to wrist. Yeah. So sort of showing that you don't need to be in one of those skimpy leotards to do your gymnastics. I mean, I would personally feel very uncomfortable having to do all those. Not that I can tumble, but if I could, I wouldn't really like to be doing sort of inverted poses in a tiny little pair of pants.
It's all a bit overly sexualized for the women, I think, and it would be. Anyway, that's Olympics. Back to professionalism,
But they're professionals.
They're professionals for sure. Being a professional at something like that. What does it mean? It means turning up every day, putting the hours
dedicated. Practicing,
not making excuses.
But I think it's hard for them. Now you've mentioned it, it's something else that came up, which was the whole of the number of athletes for whom it must be very difficult to not have their usual level of support there, because they're having to travel without their family, without their mums and dads, and without their support crew or whoever they might normally be waving at them from the sides. It's like there's a few of them I think are performing differently, and have said so because they've not got the people to give them a cuddle with them. I think it's must be quite hard. Poor people. Poor
athletes.
To have to turn up still and do your best even though you're really feeling under supported.
Well, should we knit that down into the relationship between emotions and professionalism? And often being professional implies suppressing your true emotions, doesn't it? Hiding your true emotions. And why is that? Why do we have to do that? Why can't we just shout at people?
Well,
we're not good people to talk about that because we just shout at each other.
I think you just we're both people who for whom it is difficult to cut off our emotions in a work just because we're in a professional setting.
And I think part of that is because for us to do good work, we have to get emotionally invested. So then that creates this, like, if we were just doing something that we hadn't got emotionally invested in, then we wouldn't care. And so if we were just like lifers in some job that we don't care too much about, then we wouldn't get in. So you're only really going to get emotionally like fraught if you actually care about the job, I think.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking about it when you said the lifers I had a Saturday job at Waitrose and a customer made me cry there. It's like, because she was particularly horrible. But I don't know if you have to. Or maybe it's just a personality thing, or you're just better at hiding it, or you express your emotions differently. I don't know.
Well, the psychopaths do well, don't they? The ones that can just display fake emotions. But this is I don't know. Like, why is it? What's so hard about being professional? Like, it's not that hard, is it? Just be on time.
Yeah, I was good. That was
what was in the handbook?
First example. Be on. Don't know. I didn't actually read the bit about what needs to be. But the be on time. Don't be rude to people. Be respectful. I was in the context of living in Croatia now, and they I was cycling. I went on a bike ride yesterday without anybody. It was lovely. I was thinking about the fact that the fundamental problem with Croatian customer support is that Croats don't like each other, but they certainly don't respect each other. They show no respect for other individual humans unless they know who you are, because you've got a connection. And so it's kind of that professionalism, going back to your dad's quote on doing things even when you don't want to. It's like being respectful even when you think the person you're talking to is utter
you've got to find a way, right?
You've got to find that way, and that's where manners helps you, I think.
Manners are good, but it is I think that the hardest times for me are when I just always think back, like, if I have got loads to do and someone is not holding up their end, or they've worked ages and they've done something that's, I don't know, is this it? Like, they've done something that I'm just like exasperated by how much of a waste of time it is, or like that it's just like they're still coming to me to do their job the whole time as well, and I'm like, I'm trying to just think of times I've snapped that I've felt like at my least professional. It's been, I don't know, it has been because I'm exasperated by someone else in the office. Luckily, I don't do too much customer. I think when you're like, I do most of my customer facing these days over email. So I've got I can take 6 deep breaths or wait a day and then send them an email that doesn't have any poisonous barbs in it that might have if I replied straight away. I don't know. I'm rambling.
I've had a couple of emails this whole lockdown period when I've been acting on behalf of Restaurants Brighton, and people kind of get in touch. They're like, "Oh, you've got loads of contacts in Brighton. You've got loads of coverage. Can you work for us for free?" Basically, and I'm like, I've felt quite powerful in the position of, no, they're my contacts. You can't have. So it's kind of there's a I don't know. It's like some people are allowed to be direct and some people aren't. And for some people it's, because they're very busy and very important and very serious. And some people, you're like, you're not allowed. I don't know any other expression. Like, people will be disproportionately aghast at the fact that you sent them a really direct email that went, I'm sorry, it's a paid for service.
But I think there's ebbs and flows, aren't there? Because there's you want people to be professional, but then it's a real breath of fresh air to get a sort of authentic response from someone where they just talk to you like a human being. Because so much of professionalism is follow the script and sort of toe the line and just ignore what you think about it and just say what you've been told to say about it. And
that's my fundamental problem, I think, is that I don't think that is being professional.
Mm.
I think being a professional is using the knowledge you have and telling people what, giving people your best advice or your best opinion or your best professional advice and your best professional opinion, regardless of whether that is what they expect or whether that is necessarily, or even going, no, this project shouldn't continue, it's a waste of time, or whatever it might be. I think that's being professional. But I think some people would think that was not being professional, that the professional thing is to deliver regardless, play out the days regardless, doing something is a total waste of time or the wrong effort. And I don't know that I can do that.
Yeah, well, let me put a break in because I've got an angle on this.
Okay,
and listeners, I got Ivanka to move her mic, and I've got a horrible feeling she's like 6 decibels quieter than me, so I'm just like looking at the levels. I'm definitely let's try this. I'm just going to try boosting her a little bit, but sorry about it. It's a live podcast, and I'm really trying to perfect these volume levels, and it's really hard to get right, so apologies if that's happening. I kind of hate that track that I made. There it is.
Very pretty.
It's
What's
pretty.
Wrong with pretty.
I've never liked
What's wrong
pretty.
With pretty.
But it was just one of those.
Cool.
I was making a song every day, and I was like, I'm just going to make a pretty one. Screw it. I'm going to do all those things that I would usually iron out. Is professionalism a mechanism of control?
Yes.
Because the boss does not have to do it. The boss just gets to do whatever they want. It's the underlings that have to be professional, stay professional, while the boss just gets to say whatever they want and they don't. No one says that's not very professional to the boss. So is it just simply a mechanism of control?
I think that's the only conclusion one can draw. But then I think that's assuming that all professionalism is to the benefit of the employer or the company or the project or whatever. But actually, I think knowing that there's something about personal pride in your work that also has a huge overlap with the professional expectations. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do a bad job, even if it's whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. I don't want to be the person that flaked. I don't want to be the person that didn't do their bit of the project work. I don't want to be the person that let the team down or whatever it might be. Yeah. I certainly the biggest professional, apart from the displays of emotion, the other thing I struggle with is replying to emails. It's like because I just I have to think about it for far too long, or maybe I don't know what I do. I think it's a handicap.
No, I don't think it is. It's just an email requires work to reply to a lot of the time, and that's what Dungood's all about, just making sure I do it every day. But because sometimes to reply to an email, I've got to literally spend 3 hours updating an app or something, or going and fixing something, or but I don't know which it's. Sometimes I can just reply straight away. Sometimes it's actually an awful lot of thinking involved in replying to it, and that's the typing. It takes no time. It's the what are you going to say?
And there's no accepted professional response that I know of yet where you can just reply and go, I have received your email. It's like, yes. I don't know.
No, you can say that. You can say I've received your email. I just need to have a think about it.
That's
why not?
Maybe I should do more of those. I think your dad's whole professional is doing things even when you don't want to. I think I might add that to my wall of things that I need to remind myself. But yes,
it's when you don't feel like it. The quote. I'm wondering how much of this. In terms of bringing it to the power dynamic again, and one thing I wanted to think about was just I don't see how staying late is a professional thing to do. I don't like that so many people seem to think that that's a professional expectation, or that in some places like it's expected, and I always think that's pretty scandalous. But I think like in terms of sort of exerting a power dynamic, I suppose like something like this, the podcast, is a side project for both of us, but it would not happen if we did not hold each other to a professional standard. Professional expectations of punctuality, turning up every week, at least like setting clear expectations and all that kind of thing. Most of the time. So it just, and how much of, so we sort of have both volunteered into this professional standard of producing a thing. But, I think I find it a bit easier sometimes to kind of be consistent with stuff. I have less random forces. So it's probably harder for you to maintain the professional standard of it than it is for me, certainly in terms of making the time to record it.
I think that, well, I don't know. I mean, we all have different sorts of pressures, but I think the time to record it has become pretty sacred in my house and family. I think I think we've agreed to a degree of professional, like we've like the things you've ticked off, like the turning up every week, the trying to get the sound quality right, even if I can't adjust my mic and I keep going too much. But and there's we're learning a lot as well about talking into a microphone, about talking about all of those kinds of stuff. The things that perhaps I would feel that I wish that I was doing more of, or sometimes, I don't know, is things like actually coming with specific things read, for example, or because luckily we both do have time in our weeks to usually read something or do something that makes us not too vacuous in our conversation. I don't want to be a person without. So sometimes, but then I think if we aimed higher, given that this is a sort of something we've agreed to do as a project, then I think it wouldn't happen.
Exactly. Like sometimes for something to be sustainable, it's got like, if you can't find because it takes some effort to read and digest and then be able to explain something. That's not something that just happens. Like I'm thinking, like I'm listening to this audio book so this Pat Flynn guy, I did like a live event on Monday, and I sort of turned up to that on YouTube, and he sort of read out some of my comments that I was making about, like, one was like, the imposter syndrome is through the roof, like lots of other people in there kind of feeling like that. But I said a couple of other things, and then I asked him about, like, is there something for if you've already got a product and XYZ, and he said, contact me in the DMs. So I messaged him on Instagram, and he got back to me and had a look through my stuff the next day and recommended this book, story brand. But I'm just like reading this book about like how the hero's journey of the customer is about the customer is the hero, not the brand, kind of thing. So, and that's something that I've found quite interesting already. But like, in order to be able to summarize that, I kind of need to finish it. I need to do all the worksheets, and then I need to come back to it. So I'm going to do it if it's something that I can see directly improving what I'm working on. I'm going to consume a lot of stuff, but then like if it's just sort of stuff for interest, that's in this podcast, it might be a bit more academic. Like, what is this ecological plan that this bank has, or what's this cryptocurrency that does this or that? It's just all like time that has to come from somewhere that, like, neither of us can really account for.
But I think that's like, but in professional standards, or like with the book or something, like I can make a decision about doing something because I need it to be good. I can't let it, like, my reputation is important to me, and my reputation makes my life easier, because I don't have to look for work generally. It finds me, and so it's hugely valuable. So that kind of like minimum levels of professionalism, there's got to be at least some things in place that are. But then going back to your whole professionalism is control. It's like, who decided that staying late? That smacks of no benefit to me. To be honest, as a person.
I always said, like, every hour you spent, certainly like my programmer team, like I always I've always maintained that every hour you spend on something after 6 o'clock costs you the same amount of time in the morning. Because if your thoughts, especially like with programming, if your thoughts are a bit fuzzy and you're just trying to push through, the stuff you start doing is messed up. And if you just had a break and a sleep, you would do it in like 5 lines of code, something that you've done this whole tangled hack of conditions and like weird stuff, and you're like, you can spot. You're like, I was tired and I needed to stop, but I kept going because of the deadline or whatever. And a lot of people operate like that, and that's why a load of stuff doesn't work very well.
It's true. I mean, can you imagine though how it is for doctors? Because they work ridiculous. How can they possibly be cutting us all over? Like some of the decisions, at least all you, mind you, I was going to say it's not life and death. Some code is, but there's that kind of, there's the working late, I think, is a universal example, but it's also things like from a woman's point of view, specifically, like let's say a woman who's breastfeeding, for example, and needing to go off and, I don't know, actually go to her child and breastfeed it, or pump milk, or preserve milk, whatever these things are. Like, all of these things are still sort of secretive, and yet we all need babies. Like we need doctors when we're old, and we need we need to procreate to some extent. Like when you have a baby, it's not just for hopefully you raise a person who's going to be able to contribute to society.
Well, and this is how the patriarchy exploits women, exploits the labour of women without it claims that everything is this kind of like mutually beneficial capitalist exchange, but really it's just built on the bodies of women, so much of it, who are just doing all this work for nothing. And for that to be, not respected. That Invisible, I haven't finished Invisible Women, but she gives examples of some firms that actually will provide a milk collection service and all sorts of things to help support women who need to travel for work. But it's for such a short time that you're breastfeeding. Like, so what? Don't send her on any work trips. Let people work flexi. Do you know what I mean? Come on. Do it on Zoom, for God's sake.
Come on, people. Yes. So I think some of these things you're not really supposed to say out loud, because then you're showing that you're not dedicated to your work and you're putting your family ahead of your job.
And people are so paranoid about that as well. Like, they just will not say anything because there's this idea that the job that you're being gifted this job, and that you mustn't do anything to disrupt it.
And I have to say, like, looking back at my younger self, I certainly in my 20s was a bit of like, oh, well, if she's working part-time, she can't possibly be that interested in her. And it's like, well, no. An older, wiser me is a far more respectful to people, again, highly professional, skilled women who don't work full-time. What's wrong with that? If you can do it.
What is wrong with it? Do it. Let's have a break. Okay, there we go. That bit of music is weird because I made it by drawing a picture of a Mario mushroom in Ableton Live, and that's how it was sequenced.
Whoa. Other professional things.
We didn't really prepare. What, you were going to say something?
No, I was going to say something that had nothing to do with professionalism. Your music reminded me, your first lot, but when you mentioned ducklings twice, reminded me of, we went to watch this Biggest Little Farm, which is a documentary about some people in California when it brought back. It's really uplifting, but we watched it as a family because we've got an open air cinema here, and they're doing a free series of sort of eco movies. So we've watched I Am Greta, and we've watched, which I didn't take my daughter to because I wasn't sure how much climate catastrophe there was going to be in it, and it wasn't that much. It was much more about her. And then we watched this Biggest Little Farm, which was lovely, and she sat through the whole thing, 6-year-old, going, "Mummy, what's wrong with the pig? Mummy, who ate the chicken? Mummy," but without any attempt to whisper. Is everyone going to be all right? What's going to happen? But it is very uplifting, and there is a bit of the biggest little farm.
The biggest.
I think
links.
I'll double check. But I think it's available on Netflix. But it's proper uplifting, I have to say. Even though there is a bit of like the reality of having animals and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But.
Right, back to the main subject. We're talking about professionalism. Well, our conclusions are pretty vague so far. It's something that we like to opt into, but it's also a mechanism of control. So the standards of professionalism, they have to come from somewhere, and it's better if they can come from like a place of respect and a place of fairness and justice than if it's a place of like, how much can I squeeze out of these workers?
Yeah. And equally from firm to customers. This was my point about the Croatian customer service gang. The standards of customer service in Croatia are really low, and what should we call it? My project of getting my solar panels on my house. They are my side. I'm conscious I keep calling them my solar panels. Even
can I suggest adventure?
Adventure, my solar panel adventure. I've already been told that I'm a pioneer, which is cool. But the firm that's supposed to be doing them, after me, via my mayor, applying pressure to the electricity board and getting the paperwork done, I then I know that the paperwork should have been sent to this firm, the Eon they're called, Eon, an international firm, not a Croatian firm. And I sent it to Eon. I know it's been sent to it, or should have been. So I phone up, hi, it's me again. Any news on my solar panels? Yes, madam, we can see here that the paperwork has been received. I was like, At what point were you going to let me know? And just sitting there, because I've got, because I've got two levels of angry, shouty angry, and then there's quiet angry, which, if anyone that knows me, is not cool. And I was just like, I cannot believe that you think that this is an acceptable way to do work, to do business. I've signed a contract, you need to, and I was like, what am I supposed to, so I said, so what's the next step? Would it be so hard for you people to send me an email saying, hi, Mrs. Ivanka, which is how people get referred to, but that's the standard form of address. We've now received the paperwork, which is great news. We now need to, wait, this is the next step, and that's the step after, and this is the expectation. How hard would that be? She was like, how hard? But I've realised that was my bicycle reflection moment, which is that they don't give us stuff. Zero interest in communicating or having any respect for the people who are. So when you're, as a customer in Croatia, when you try and do business with somebody, you're actually making them do their job, which they didn't want to do. They would have been much happier sat at work, not doing anything. So they're like, oh, what? Why have you rocked up? Oh, do you really want to buy something?
I was just chilling. I've made my quota already. It's fine.
It is like that.
Do you think like once you've done, you've got your solar panels, you could make like a script for the next person to follow? I heard this thing about like this guy, you'll be rich or whatever, but he's got like one of his things on his website is just a script you can just read through, call up your, like, I don't know, what was it, like internet provider, and it sort of gives you a script of the things to say, and then you come out of it having saved like $20 a month or something on your thing. I wonder if you could like turn this into a script and we can put it on the website, and the next Croatian person
if anybody knows anybody who knows anybody at Eon Management, I'd love to talk to them. It doesn't have to be in Croatia, but anyone with any oversight of Eon in Croatia, I would love to have a chat with you. I promise that I will be very objective and not at all shouty. The
Dogs World on Twitch says, "Are you their only customer?"
Well, apparently I'm the first person in this area to have requested solar panels that are connected to the grid.
Okay.
So I am I'm forcing them to create a process that hadn't previously existed. So that is the problem.
Behaviour change is the hardest thing in the world for people. It's the thing that burns the most calories. Like, it's like figuring out how to do a new thing you haven't done before is the hardest thing in the world, I think.
But, at one point I got a phone call which was like, yes, the piece of paper that needs to be signed is sitting on the director's desk of the local electricity board. It's like, what in God's name does he need to have anything to do with it? So it's a process that says, yes, you're allowed to sell us electricity off your solar panels. Anyway, I look forward to telling Ian about it. What about you, Michael?
Let me give some. So I've worked for myself for a lot of the last. Well, I've worked under my own steam for a lot of the last 10 years. I think like I've had lots of phases where I've been not answering to anyone else. Most of those were not making any money. Right now, it's dubious whether I'm making any money. Like there was a bit that I definitely was, but now jury's out. But what I have always done is like on my own things. Whatever professional standard that a paid job is going to hold me to, I am going to bring at least that much to my own thing. Otherwise, I'm not even respecting myself. Like if I would get up at 8 o'clock every day for LBI, I'm going to get up every day to make music at 8 o'clock. I'm going to have a coffee. I'm not going to be in my pajamas in the middle of the afternoon. I'm sure a lot of people who have been working from home have sort of like felt the temptation, the draw of just like, being a bit of a slob and like sort of make, but I really think like if you have respect for what you're doing, then you need to like turn up in the same way and more so if it's your own project.
Yeah, I think the word respect is really key. I mean, funny you should say about the whole slobbing. I've realised that now that I'm not working on a proper contract, the washing, the amount of washing we have is less because I'm not wearing work clothes and home clothes. Like I'm in. It's quite noticeable that it's shorts and a t-shirt time, not which I hadn't realised how much I was dressing for work until I've realised now how much washing I don't have to do. So Well,
I wear a shirt when I come to this studio and jeans. I don't come here in tracksuit bottoms and like a t-shirt. Like partly because sometimes like I don't know when I'm going to go on camera and start like streaming or doing something. So I try to sort of stay prepared to sort of be seen. But I just remember someone I used to work with saying like she couldn't work unless she had her boots on, kind of thing. She had to be wearing shoes to be able to draw. Like, and I'm like, I think that's fair. Like, it just puts you in the right mindset, being a bit uncomfortable in jeans.
Putting your costume on, your work costume.
As long as drawing the line at like painful high heels, of course. But like,
Yeah. But I think that whole that respect for yourself, and I think it's when you're working because I like you, I've been working as a freelancer for a long time, but I've also got this Restaurants Brighton project, and then there's a few other voluntary bits and bobs that I do. But I think the biggest difference between me making decisions for Restaurants Brighton and me making decisions in a professional environment is that I'm much more comfortable taking riskier decisions with restaurants. Right. I can make faster decisions because I'm only accountable. If I'm dubious, I go and have a chat with Nick. But otherwise, it's like, let's do that then. Yeah. Because I'm not accountable to the only person that's going to suffer. Like the only person that I am the last. The stop. Yeah. So it's like whatever the backstop or whatever. That's it. So it's just quicker. Because I don't have to go and check stuff. I just do it. So it's kind of that's one of the biggest differences I've noticed. Should we delete that? Delete it.
Let's do it.
I do some checks, so I'm still me, but I'm it's not like I'm doing a government project where I can go, well, okay, if we make a mess, millions of people could suffer. Probably best to do some testing, get some data together, certainly. But
due diligence. But like I'll do like my sort of automated testing in code. Like it's you sort of. I do still do it for my private stuff, but like I'll get to it under circumstances where I'm really like spending more time on this than I should. Like, they would make my life easier. But then that's how I think everyone works with that stuff anyway. Yeah. But we're at 43. I'm going to play the last clip and then I'm going to play the outro. So how about that? Let's tie
Sounds
it
good
up,
to me.
shall we? I just tried a slightly weird transition there. I don't know if it worked, but that's the end of the podcast. If you liked it, you can go to grandpodcast.com and find everything you need. Follow us on Twitch or whatever. Where can people find you on the internet, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
That's only 5 letters?
I don't know.
No, or is it?
Yeah.
6.
Great telly.
6 letters.
Yeah, 6.
Much short. I wish my name wasn't so long, because I get my name on things, but it's like 14 characters long, so it's just hardly worth it. Plus, everyone writes Majic instead of Majic.
It's a silly spelling.
If you're interested in like audio stuff and like video stuff and podcasting live stuff, come to squares.tv. There's a couple of posts on there, and you can join the mailing list. Or if you want to support the podcast, there is a Patreon, but you can find that, patreon.com/grandpodcast. And that's where we're up to. You can join in the chat if you find us. It's usually 10:30 on a Friday morning, UK time. So, yeah, feel free to come and join us if you do find yourself shouting. And we will hopefully see you soon. So, take care and have a good week. Bye.
Bye.